Education work session and regular session is in session. Mr. Byrd, will you do an invocation for us, please?
Yes. During this Christmas time, when we celebrate the lives of our children and celebrate the lives of all of our family members, let's be especially mindful of what we have to do today. We have to look at present situations, future situations, all with a focus on doing what's best for the children of this school system. And dear Lord, please guide us in those decisions. Amen.
Amen. All right, we're going to go ahead and proceed with our work session. Mr. Kubik, informational items.
Yes, sir. The first one is Ms. Cantrell in reference to an MOU with UAH for English as a Second Language program.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Aguirre Cantrell, and I work in federal programs for Madison County Schools, and my primary responsibility is to oversee our English learner department. And I'm really excited to share with you guys that we have worked with UAH, and UAH has secured a grant from the United States Department of Education. They're going to partner with Madison County Schools, and this project is called Project Dial. In this grant that UAH received with the United States Department of Education, it's intended to provide professional development and degree certification opportunities for teachers within our district. I think what is so neat about this opportunity is that we are partnering with our sister systems. Madison City Schools and Huntsville City Schools will all be working with UAH. This grant will provide support for teachers across the tri-district of Madison County Schools, Madison City, and Huntsville City. The main draw, I think, is that it'll provide half of tuition support for up to 125 secondary teachers. It'll provide on-demand professional development for all educators. It'll provide paid professional development training for up to 300 secondary content teachers, coaching for 100 teachers, a PLU for up to 40 administrators, and support for 10 teachers total, that's about 3 per district, to become nationally board certified. This is why I think it's such a great opportunity for our district to be a part of this with UAH. These are our growth trends for Madison County Schools in respect to English learners. Currently, we have 520 English learners served within our district. It's a trend of significant growth for Madison County Schools. Since 2018, English learners have grown by 175% within Madison County. A little bit about what that looks like in our district. In our district, ESL support is content-based. So what that means is our English learner students are learning content within the classroom while they acquire English language. So our ESL services are supplemental. What we provide our students is outside of what they're already learning within the classroom. And I'll show you just a bit of a breakdown on what that looks like. We currently have over 30 languages spoken within Madison County Schools, our students. We have 520 EL students and 8 ESL specialists. So the point that I want to make here is that this is going to build capacity within our district by training teachers on best practices for serving English learners within the classroom. So we're going to better equip our schools and districts to have those people within the building. This is just a brief overview of what English learners and English proficiency means to our district. It's worth 5 percentage points on our district report card. In our most recent report card, we earned 4.16 points out of the available 5. We've decided with UAH to prioritize middle and high school teachers, and the reason for that is because that's what our data supports. You can see that there's a clear break between the 5th and 6th grade year as far as English learners and their growth. And then a point I know that was made in an earlier board meeting, but our schools last year, 6 of the 7 that were above the district average for growth, they had additional support within the schools. We had EL tutors. So I think that it makes the point that the more people we have on staff serving our students, it does seem to have an intended effect. Because we're prioritizing the middle and high schools, I just wanted you to see an overview of what that would look like. Here's a breakdown of our current schools that we would like to work with, their overall student population, and then their EL population. So we're talking roughly 186 students out of 8,174, and that'll be about 36% of our EL population. Any questions that I could address?
Yeah, so some middle schools are 6th, 7th, and 8th grade in our system. Some middle schools are 7th and 8th. And so are 6th graders going to be receiving this training, 6th grade teachers also?
Depends on the school that they're in. So this, I can go back
Yeah, that's fine.
here. These are the schools that we've prioritized so that we can concentrate the training.
Okay,
And it just kind of depends on how big their EL population is.
thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Cantrell, this is a program that we're in with our sister systems, correct? With
Yes.
Huntsville City, Madison County, and UH, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall we continue?
Continue, sir.
All right. The second item, informational item, is Madison County School Central Office Restructuring Plan. I have a handout for each one of you. It's color-coded. The top half has our current structure on how we have it's our current layout for how we have the central office staffed. And the best way I can describe this is what I'd like to do is if you can envision an umbrella. And if you have an umbrella and it's open, and you have 3 panels that you see, the 3 panels on the umbrella that make up the fabric would be the chief school financial officer, the chief of staff, and the chief operations officer. So they're covering up the school district as a whole. Then if you go down the handle in which the handle is, on one side you have instruction, on the other side you have other services for students. So when you think about it, everything underneath our umbrella is our students. And so on one half, I would like to have an assistant superintendent for instruction. And on the other side, I would like to have an assistant superintendent for student support services. Well, all that umbrella on both the top and the bottom, as far as how it's protected, there's a rib that goes around the outside of the umbrella. Well, our IT department is of the piece that kind of supports everything above the umbrella and everything below the umbrella. And it covers the entire district. So what I'd like to do is have the assistant superintendent for system services be basically that 6th piece, which is the IT piece, and have them so that they're providing the support for both above and below. So if you envision it that way, you kind of get an ideal picture. So what I'm asking to do is go ahead and restructure so that we have 3 chiefs, a chief school financial officer, a chief of staff, and a chief operations officer. The chief school financial officer, of course, will work with all the finances, payroll, and insurance. The chief of staff will work with the personnel, the public relations, and also the direct supervisor for the principals. The chief operations officer would be operations, transportation, safety, and security. Under the assistant superintendent for instruction, you'd have federal programs, special ed programs, elementary, middle, and high school. Under the assistant superintendent for student services, you would have the equity and innovation, you would have student services department, you'd have health services, you would have athletics, and you'd have the social workers. And then under the assistant superintendent for system services, it'd be IT, virtual academy, and all the things that have to deal with IT side. So that's the structure that I'm proposing, and I'd like to bring that back to you in January for a vote.
Can you explain the virtual academy piece under the assistant superintendent of system services? Give me a little more insight as to why you see it fitting under that.
Well, there's still the piece with instruction, because it's instruction-based.
Right.
But it's all, since it's all virtual, and there's a lot of information that goes on as far as keeping it up and running and all the virtual component to it, that's why we thought we'd put it underneath, so that it also is under the Assistant Superintendent for System Services as well. It still has the instructional component, so it's still under instruction for curriculum pieces, but it's gonna, because it is a virtual program, we would have it under IT so that there's a direct link for keeping that up and how it's running.
So really, that's the technical piece of the virtual academy.
Correct.
function.
It would be, yeah,
But
that
it
would be a
still
technical.
It's
Correct.
still, instructionally would still fit under the superintendent for
In-
instruction.
For instruction, it would still fall for, instructional piece would be under instruction. The virtual piece would be for the actual assistant superintendent under the IT part.
How many employees would the assistant superintendent of system services be over, do you think?
How many employees? It'd be the entire IT department, as well as, well, and the virtual piece would be working with the virtual academy. So total employees, I'm trying to think of what Ms. Rodman has,
Just off
probably,
the top of your head, I mean,
I would
About
probably.
12, 14?
15 to 25, somewhere in that ballpark, depending on, well, because you have the IT department, and then you'd also have whatever they needed to do with the virtual academy as well.
and then the other ones would actually be over a lot more employees.
Correct. Or departments, because some of those other departments have supervisors or directors or coordinators that would be over those positions. So they have people that were actually leading the departments, but they'd be over more departments, yes, sir.
So this current structure was the structure that Mr. Massey put in place when he became superintendent. The current structure that we're under
Yes,
right
sir.
now. What's your net staff increase as far as your leadership? You gain, or are we at the same number of staffing? I could count it, I guess, to figure it out, but do you know off the top of your head?
Well, one of the things is, as the personnel department, I won't be replacing myself. So that position will become the chief of staff position. So that's a trade out there. The assistant superintendent for instruction is already there. It's been vacated with Mr. Solly's retirement. Our deputy is in one of the roles as one of the chiefs. Our CSFO is already in place. Our assistant superintendent for system services is also already in place. Mr. Perkins is due back, and he is returning to the Madison County School System, and he will be coming back as a director unassigned. And that will be effective January 1. So that's another director's position that's going to go there. So when you look at the org chart, you had the assistant superintendent of instructions, you had public relations, you had personnel, you had director of equity and innovation, and you had the assistant superintendent of system services, all answering to the deputy. And then the deputy is answering to the superintendent. And so in this org chart, you have all 6 of these people answering up directly to the superintendent's office. And then the principals also answer to the deputy, and they'll be answering to the chief of staff. So there will be some reorganization within it, but as far as actual, if you add the other unassigned director in here, it's almost exactly the same number of positions, because that has to be added back in, which isn't there currently. And I will send you, tomorrow I'll send you an updated link of how this would play out as far as, further information in reference to individuals and where I see and how I see them going that are currently staffed with us.
Now, Mr. Kubic, do you see this as being an increase in our total overhead at central office? It's the same or decrease?
Decrease.
Can you estimate about how much you think it would save?
Well, we've already made some changes in the instructor department, but we've also hired some people. So if you take all that we've already done, moving forward. Even with these changes here, it's a net of about $25,000 savings. And the structure is more aligned, it's more linear, so everybody knows where they have to answer to, and so they know who they can go to as far as getting information, disseminating both up and down the chain of command.
Any further questions about the reorganization? Okay, thank you, Mr. Keeper.
All right, sir. The next thing, item C for informational items, is the capital plan. The capital plan that we had submitted and voted on and passed, we've had some revelations based on some changes that have occurred. For one thing, as we were looking at Lynn Fanning Elementary School, and we were looking at putting a possible wing there of 8 classrooms, right now, based on their current enrollment, we would have to put 8 portables on there right now. So we were looking at doing a wing for something that they already need today. So we would be opening up a wing and building it 2 years from now and already knowing that they've outgrown it. So instead of it being an 8 classroom wing, it probably would have had to been somewhere around a 12 classroom wing, which increased the price there. So when we started looking at that, and we started looking at the wing out at Harvest, and then when Ms. O'Bannon did our financial updates we found out that our revenues were a little better than we thought we were gonna be. And so it appears that everything is in line for us to restructure our capital plan. So if we go ahead and eliminate the wings, we should be able to get started on building a K-6 school out in the Harvest Zone, in between Madison Crossroads and Harvest, in that Tony area on our McKee Road land. So instead of, we want to repurpose that money and put it towards building the McKee Road. So what we're proposing here is, we still want to have some learning cottages on there because there may be some spots for growth. So we want to keep 4 learning cottages on there at $450,000. We want to create the McKee Road School, which is item number 31. We've estimated $35 million for that. There is the energy upgrades that we need to do at $1.5 million. And then we want to look at some infrastructure for the entry into Meridianville Middle School, and that's at $1.5 million. So the added item is both, the infrastructure is really the only thing item added, because what has changed is McKee Road and the energy upgrades have just been moved up from line 35 and 36 being unfunded to 31 and 32 being funded. What we're deleting is Lynn Fanning's elementary, the wing, Harvest Elementary's wing, the additional learning cottages at Harvest Elementary, and the additional learning cottages at Riverton Elementary School. After looking at, going out, Dr. Minsky and Mr. Malone went out and visited all the schools, and they actually walked the school campuses and looked at classrooms and saw what could and couldn't be used. We figured out that we could make some things work for right now, and we wouldn't need to add those learning cottages right now. There's room in the schools right now. We just have to restructure a few things. So the McKee Road School would take probably 2.5 to 3 years.
I'd say 2.5 to 3 when you're talking about the design development of it as well.
Okay.
18 to 24 months for construction.
Okay, so if we got started on moving forward with this in January, when I plan to bring this back to you, we're on a very, very positive timeline. We could look at 26, 27, 25, 26.
25, 26, if everything goes well.
Okay, so here's what's great about this, is that this fixes the problem out west. Because the growth area out west, we are well aware of, we have the Cliff Farms project that's coming in, but we have the growth pieces actually happening north of Sparkman High. So that's where we have to concentrate, fix. And McKee Road was already on our plan. So what we're doing is, instead of doing the wings and then going to McKee 3 years from now, we're now moving McKee up 3 years. So it's going to address that problem a lot sooner, okay? Now, this doesn't take into consideration us pursuing additional revenue stream to do more capital plans. This is just, we're kind of going to go with, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. O'Bannon, this is kind of a pay-as-you-go that we're going to approach this McKee Road project. So we're using money that we have already instead of borrowing. Now, we may have to go to the market to borrow a little bit, you know, depending on what the bids and all come in at, but it will be a minimal cost as opposed to, we're going to pay as you go for this school.
We have to look at the infrastructure, IT infrastructure as well separately, and the furnishings.
Okay. So those are some things we're going to have to look at. So there might be a small borrowing possibility here, but we're going to pay for a majority of it out of our funds as we go. Correct, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So could we pay for the 35 million as it is now with the funds that we have? We could. Where'd that estimate, that 35 come from? And is that a fresh estimate with market conditions and different?
It's fresh, 3 or 4 months old. You know, I was in a meeting today, and there's still some issues with some delivery of certain products. Some products are still very high. Windows, some steel is still high. I think if we come in the fall, it might be a really good time. Depending on the economy, what's going on there as far as our pricing. But we're looking at Moore's Mill, that floor plan basically, and looking at, we know what that cost us to build, and built into the cost increases over the last few years, and that's what we come up with.
Okay.
Actually, we're saying about 33, but I think we're done at 35.
Okay.
So that would help with the soft costs and everything else I was referring to.
IT, all that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we are looking at Moore's Mill's plan with that extra wing that we had on there originally, that we took off previously. So it would be a larger school, about 1,000. With the way we kind of see it just tentatively broken up, is probably about 20% or so, maybe from Harvest, and about 80% out of Madison Crossroads. And we're looking at, there would be 3 K-6s up there, taking the 6th grade out of Sparkman Middle School. Even though there's room inside the classrooms, if you've been in that school, it's extremely tight for those, the middle schoolers to be getting around, as well as that gym and that lunchroom and everything else. So we'll be looking at, the plan right now is to look at 3 K-6s up there with that, with the rebuilding McKee Road. So how does that affect the Hazel Green projects? Because the Hazel Green, we're missing a wing there now, and we know we have growth problems. And if you go up the Parkway and you go out 72, that wedge is exploding, and we know we have that problem. So we are going to look at doing some grade reconfigurations for those schools. So Lynn Fanning is currently a, excuse me, is a K3 school, PK3 school. It would be a PK2 school. So we'd move the 3rd grade out of that school. That 3rd grade would move across the street, and it would go to Moore's Mill. Moore's Mill would become a 3, 4, 5. So it really, if you think about it this way, if you look at Hazel Green and you say the south side, you would have Lynn Fanning PK2, Moore's Mill 3, 5. North side, you'd have Hazel Green Elementary School, PK5. Okay? We take the 6th grade and we put them into Meridianville Middle School. It becomes a 6, 7, and 8. Now, how that affects everything overall, by those changes alone, Lynn Fanning now has room for 149 students, additional. Hazel Green Elementary has 336 students available for 336 more students. Moore's Mill, 142 students, and Meridianville Middle, there's room for 221 more students. So we have room to give us some time. Now,
Maybe buy us about 4 or 5 years, maybe.
that's what I'm hoping for, because on our capital plan, which we already have down the list, we have the Hazel Green Middle School project. So again, without those wings, we're moving everything up probably 3 years from where it would. So we're moving in a positive direction to work with the growth.
So where would the McKee Road School, what schools would that pull from? And how would that help us out with a desegregation order, or would it help us, hurt us? What kind of population are you gonna have there?
Okay, Harvest Elementary and Madison Crossroads are both Title I schools. Talking with Ms. Bass already, when federal program supervisor, McKee Road would become a Title I school because 20% is coming from Harvest and 80%, and those are just rough estimates. We'd have to see how the zone lines worked out. But it would also be a Title I school. So it would populate in the same, it's just a different makeup as far as dispersing the students across that. Instead of two schools, we're dispersing the K-6 students or PK-6 across the whole northern side of Tony and Harvest. So the makeup will be most likely very similar, if not identical. Now, we still have plans to alleviate some pressure immediately and not having to do those, which would be, we still have the zone line change for Burwell Gardens to bring that down into Monrovia zone.
Monrovia Elementary.
We're at Monrovia Elementary, and then the section that's south of Harvest to bring that down to Endeavor.
And I want to make sure everybody understand, we as a school system are dealing with growth everywhere, not one district.
Correct.
We're having to right now, we're filling up almost every empty classroom we have, basically system-wide. And we're going to need new buildings more than one place. And this rezoning and moving students from Harvest to Endeavor and from Madison Crossroads to Monrovia, all that's doing is buying time for those schools to fill up again, just as they will fill up in Hazel Green, Buckhorn, New Hope, and of course, when Cliff Farms hits my district, they'll fill up again. So I want to make sure that when there be parents out there someplace, in my district or somebody else's district going, well, I don't want my son or daughter rezoned, we have to put kids in classrooms when they're available. We have to make sure that is a safe environment, the best environment for them to learn in.
So I'll be bringing this back to you on the 12th of January.
So with the, with the sixth grade going to Meridianville Middle School, we'll pick up will the sixth grade teachers from Morris Mill Intermediate transition over to Meridianville Middle School? And will that include an additional assistant principal for the middle school?
Yes, when we go ahead and look at staffing, we'll conduct staffing aligned with what the new grade configurations are. So we'll take their ADMs that they currently have, like Moores Mill sixth grade ADM, and we'll add that to Meridianville's, and then that will be their total. So it would most likely, excuse me, generate another assistant principal there, as well as we have a plan in place where we transfer, when we do regrade configurations, how we transfer teachers to those, to the new school. Since the whole grade is going, the whole sixth grade would move.
So in our current middle schools that have sixth grade, are those sixth grade students kind of isolated from the seventh and eighth, or are they?
I can speak about Monrovia Middle School. They have a separate segment of the school that they basically operate in. Do they intermix with each other? Yes, but it's very infrequently.
Okay.
They usually, the sixth grade, each is a group. The sixth grade goes to PE as a group. They have their own separate band program. But by and large, they have a designated wing that they stay in and change classes.
Okay. Yeah, I remember when I was an employee, Meridianville was a 6, 7, 8. I just couldn't remember. Thank you for that, Mr. Byrd. I just couldn't remember how we structured that. So that's recommended, I would assume, to kind of have that segmentation for the sixth grade.
I've already asked Ms. Robertson to get with Mr. Trewick and to converse, and, you know, and also Ms. Bell, just to see how they're, excuse me, how they are actually handling that, so that way they can see how each school, she can see how each school is actually handling that piece. But, and so I've asked for her to set up meetings with those two principals.
Okay. Any more questions about restructure, capital plan?
I would note that you do have a process in your desegregation order to submit this to the
Yes, ma'am.
parties for review. It's a simplified process under the new order.
Do you foresee any issues with this?
No, from the information that I have, I think that we'll be in good shape.
Okay.
I mean, if they have any questions, they'll let us know. But under your new order, you do not have to wait on the judge to review it unless the other side has a
And I guess however we split the zones up, that'll probably be the key part they want to look at, and
And what children are going where.
what children are going where,
They
the
look at those green factors.
demographics and all that.
Programs and make sure your academics are the same across the board, which they will be. You know, they look at that sort of thing and how long they're riding on buses and that sort of thing.
How many acres is the McKee Road property? 90 acres. Okay.
Yeah.
And how many acres does Moore's Mill currently sit on? You know? Just curious. It doesn't sound like we got a spacing issue at all with 90 acres. Okay.
When we looked at McKee, when they bought that back 12 years ago, actually, it designed to have an elementary and a high school there along with athletics. There's enough property there for that. In the future, should we need it.
Yeah. The Sparkman isn't even on 90 acres, is it? Was it on probably about 25, 30? Yeah. Okay.
It's very small.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Cubic, Purple Star School.
Yeah. Dr. Ballard's here to recognize our Madison County Schools Purple Star Schools.
We are very excited to recognize the 6 Madison County schools that were designated Purple Star schools in 2022. The Purple Star designation means that these schools are ready and able to support military-connected students and their families. Each of these schools has a designated point of contact for military families. The point of contact receive and offer professional development focused on supporting military students. In addition, the schools have a student-led team that assists new students, military-connected or civilian, as they transition into a new learning environment. We are very proud of these schools, which are a part of the state of Alabama's charter members of the Purple Star program. On September 8th, 2022, the Alabama Board of Education passed a resolution in recognition of Alabama 2022 inaugural Purple Star schools. We received on your behalf banners that you can hang in your school. The Madison County School System also has a Madison County Schools Purple Star program medallion for your school. Tonight, we are recognizing the principals and presenting a copy of the resolution, the ALSDE banner, and the MCSS medallion. And the first goes to Buckhorn High School, to Mr. Lavelle Everett, principal.
Get up there and take pictures.
You can get up there.
That's superintendent.
The next is to Lynn Fanning Elementary School, Miss Winetta Ford. The next is to Meridianville Middle School, Miss Melissa Robertson. The next is Mount Carmel Elementary School, Dr. Julie Norden. And we have Riverton Elementary School, Dr. Andrea Datson. And last but not least, Walnut Grove Elementary School, Ms. Yolanda Wright.
Congratulations. We're proud of you all, and we appreciate what you do for military families.
Thank you very much. All right, we are about to, before we start, you guys feel free to stay if you want to and stay for the meeting, but you're welcome to leave if you have other things to do. All right, before we go into our regular session, I'm going to read a statement from Mr. Alan Perkins. It is a memo. It says, Mr. Curry, due to a family emergency that will prevent me from conducting the December 15th, 2022 board meeting, I give Mr. Ken Kubik, Superintendent-elect, the full authority to convene, facilitate, and make decisions in my absence at the December 15th, 2022 meeting. Sincerely, Alan Perkins, Superintendent, Madison County Schools. Okay. Mr. Kubik, we're going to skip past the invocation. We did that.
I recommend approval of the agenda dated December 15th, 2022.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for the approval of the agenda dated December 15th, 2022. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I recommend approval of the 2023-24 high school academic guide as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the 2023-2024 high school academic guide as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I recommend the board authorize Mary Stump to negotiate and enter a resolution session agreement, mediation agreement, or settlement agreement in any special education complaints from January 1, 2023 through December 31, 2023. Regarding special needs students, the board will be provided with a copy of each complaint and updated on the status of these matters as they proceed.
Motion. Second.
I have a motion and a second for recommendation for Mary Stump to negotiate and enter into special education agreements and settlements through December 31st, 2023. Any discussion? Again, as Mr. Kubik said, we will be briefed prior to, and we will get informed electronically. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the Sparkman High School cooling tower replacement change order as submitted.
Motion.
A second.
Y'all just wait till I go.
Yeah.
I mean,
You second?
sure.
Okay.
Very good.
You got it. You got it, Ms. Thompson. Motion and second.
You know, I was stealing her notes for a minute, I'm sorry. Who moved?
Got it. Ms. Bates,
Ms.
motion.
Bates,
She got the tie.
All right.
and you seconded, Mr. Burke?
Mr. Joseph.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, I'm sorry. All in favor?
All right. Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Now, which one are we on?
We're on-
Sparkman High or Madison County?
We're on to Madison County.
Okay. I recommend approval of the Madison County High School cooling tower replacement change order as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the Madison County High School cooling tower replacement change order as submitted. Any discussion?
Both of those are money back to our system, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Just money back, kinda, yeah. It's a good thing.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the October 2022 financial statements and payment of bills as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the October 2022 financial statements and payment of bills as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the bid and bid renewals as submitted. Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of bids and bid renewals as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I recommend approval of the contracts for services as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of contracts for services as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the personnel items as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of personnel items as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I recommend approval of the supplemental contracts and the discontinued contracts as submitted. Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of supplemental contracts. We got the discontinued.
And discontinued contract.
And discontinuance of supplemental contracts as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, concludes the administrative items on our agenda. Before we go into executive session for a student matter, any comments, anything for the good of the board? Any board members like to address? Yeah, I sent you all a message earlier about the February 9th board meeting. I'd like to move that to February the 7th. I have a conflict on the 9th. I think everybody's is solid with that. Everybody's okay with that? Okay. So, Dr. Minsky, if you could make that update for us, I'd appreciate it. Okay.
The other thing is, we're talking all about,
Strategic plan?
the board training, for this board training and strategic plan. That was something we talked about.
Yeah, we'll
Do that
another day, yeah. But to say something about that, though, we will be this year talking about a new strategic plan for the board, where we see ourselves going forward from now, the next 5 years. We'll also, this year, we'll have whole board training that we will all come together and train. A lot of good things happening in 2023, I hope. Exciting times, exciting times. I just want to say it's a welcome. This is our first, I think, of real board meeting with the two new board members, and they've had a lot of questions. I spent time with both of them. Mr. Byrd, Mr. Jones, solid folks. So thank you guys for serving. We appreciate you, and we look forward to serving with you again. Yeah. All right. Well, I need a motion to go into executive session for a student matter.
Motion.
Second.
All right. So all those in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned to executive session. We'll take about a 5-minute break.